Welcome back to the Bad Bitch Empire. We're kicking off with a total bad bitch who is building a billion-dollar lingerie empire. My guest today is Heidi Zak. She's the co-founder and CEO of ThirdLove, the company that disrupted an entire industry by daring to say women deserve better. Heidi didn't just build a bra company, she built a movement around fit, inclusivity, and listening to women when legacy brands refuse to. From pioneering half-cup sizes to redefining what representation looks like, she scaled ThirdLove into one of the most influential direct-to-consumer brands. And today, Heidi has built it into her billion-dollar bad bitch empire. So today we're talking about what it actually takes to build a category-defining brand, lead with conviction and power, and how to stay true to your values while building something iconic on your own terms. Heidi, welcome to the Bad Bitch Empire.
Thanks. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Let's get into it. Bring us back to where did this all get started in terms of how you even got into entrepreneurship in the first place?
Yeah, so I started my career in banking in New York and then went to business school and was working at a retail company. So I never thought I would found a company. That wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something I had thought about or really even heard about. And it was really fortuitous that I ended up moving to San Francisco in 2010 and I took a job at Google. And while I was out here, I was just immediately taken by the entrepreneurship landscape and everything that was getting built. And I met a lot of founders building a lot of cool things, crazy things, weird things. And I remember thinking to myself at one of the holiday parties that I was at a startup here, if these guys can do it, and they were mostly guys, feels like I could do it too. So I was really inspired to try to build something. And though I loved Google as a company, it wasn't the place that I wanted to spend the next decade at. And I missed retail and I missed consumer. Once I had this idea around bras, it was really that moment of everything came together. It was the right moment in my career. I felt like I had the right skill set. And also, it just really felt like now or never. If I don't do this, I'm going to really regret not trying to see if I could build this.
So let's go back. When you started ThirdLove, let's really dig into why this idea over any other idea that you could have started, because back then, direct to consumer wasn't even really a term. You weren't really buying bras online. Where did that idea and that conviction come from that this is the business that you want to pursue?
At the time, I was a really busy working woman. I didn't have kids at the time. I was going down to Mountain View every day on the Google bus, and my days were 12-hour plus work days, and I needed a bra. And so I did something insane, which was get in the car and drive to the mall and go into a Victoria's Secret store, which is what I had done since I was in my teenage years, and was just trained of that is what you do when you need a bra. And when I came out of that shopping experience that day and I was driving home, I'm like, why am I going to the store? Why can't I buy it online? Why isn't there a better bra brand? Like, why? All the whys. And when I came home and I started doing research, there were no online bra brands. This was before direct to consumer had started, and it was pretty nascent, the idea of building a brand online. And so really it came from a personal need that I saw. And just seemingly, who wants to take the time to go to the store? Like, people are busy, women are busy, they have other things they want to do. Like, I can't be the only one who feels that way. And that turned out to be very true. I found a big opportunity, and the bras that once it came up, I couldn't get it out of my head. And I kept talking to women, and everyone was like, yeah, you're right. Like, why do we shop at Victoria's Secret? I don't know. We just do. That's not a good answer. Like, not a good answer for anything.
What year did you start this, ThirdLove?
2013.
13, okay. So a little over 10 years ago. And so in 2013, I imagine it's very male-dominated industry. I mean, it still is, but had there ever been a female founder who had pitched investors a bra company? And what was that experience like when you first started?
Not many. There was one other bra company around the same time as us that was launching. So probably there was one other person in the ecosystem, but you're talking about one. So yeah, not like today where there's lots of female founders of lots of different companies, certainly not. And it was all men. I don't actually ever remember pitching. Maybe there was one or two women we pitched in our seed round in 2013, but not really. And unfortunately, we didn't even have female investors really in that first round we did. As we went on to our second round, it was easier when we were a little more established to locate women and bring more women investors in. But definitely the ecosystem, it's evolved a lot over the past 12, 13 years. There's way more women. It's still small, but there's a lot more women investors and angels. So just a lot of guys. And pitching to guys about a bra company is they're not wearing them. So they're not experiencing the pain of shopping for a bra or the issues women have. And so oftentimes they were lensing through, let me bring my admin into the meeting, or I'm going to go have my wife order, right? And I will come back to you. So there was a lot of sort of just the awkwardness of not having someone who was like, yeah, I get it. Like, I've done this before.
Where did you find the confidence to really push through that? And I'm sure the misogyny or anything else that you had to deal with, especially building a female-led company for women.
Yeah, I was so focused on just getting the round done. To be candid, it's like, it's so hard to hear no's all the time. This is standard for any entrepreneur, that you're just really focused on getting to yes and getting a yes. And we were lucky enough towards the end of our fundraising process to have a guy who really got it and was like, I totally get this and I believe in it. And that kind of makes up for, in some ways, like all the other terrible meetings you have or experiences, is like getting that one person who really gets it and doesn't even need that much explaining. That's what everyone hopes for. It's like you find that really great partner, but probably 100 meetings to get to that point.
And what was your mindset, especially it's always the early days when you don't yet have the traction or the credibility or the yeses in your pocket, that kept you going after 100 no's?
It's do or die. So for us, because we were pre-launch, we had bootstrapped the company with about $100,000, and we had used that to build out prototypes of the product and our app, and we had some sampling and things like that. But to really launch as we wanted to launch, we needed money for inventory and for all the build out. And this is also pre-Shopify, all the things that are really out of the box today that are the ecosystem for D2C, like all the companies, none of that existed. So it was a different time where you needed sort of different resources to be able to launch. And so it was, we got to get this done. And anytime you fundraise, you're usually doing it because you're going to run out of money at some point or another. You're not doing it just because you want to fundraise. And so you have to fundraise. And so there is no other options. It's a lot of grit and it's really hard. But the way I would do it would be every meeting, good or bad, you learn something. And you should walk away from every pitch being like, what could I have done better? What did I learn? Because it's all a learning opportunity. And so I really tried to lens it through that of not feeling like it was a waste of time or that took a lot of time or they said no, but what did we learn from it? Easier said than done. But you just keep your head down and you keep going, and you keep going. It's like anything that's really hard that you do in your life. It's a lot of perseverance and just keep going.
Absolutely. And the other thing that you did with ThirdLove is this is a time where it still is, but especially lingerie companies were selling from like the male gaze. They were selling sex from the male gaze. And so you really took your own values, got really clear on what the brand stood for women, by women, inclusivity. Tell us about what are the pillars of your brand and how did those come about?
Yeah, so the way we designed the product was thinking about what do women really need and why are there issues. So it's a lot easier to solve problems when you're not ingrained in the industry. So it's not like I had any bra experience. I was just a woman who didn't love the bras she had. Now I came to find out I was a half cup, so I was always in between cup sizes. Therefore, I'd never really had a bra that fit. So there was a lot of unlocks that we found just by thinking about the problem differently and approaching it in a different way. But the brand was really founded on this idea of better product, more sizes so women can find their fit, fitting technology online so we can help a woman find her size when she's shopping, because it is hard to buy. It's hard to buy a bra that fits in the store. It's even harder to buy a bra that fits online. And then lastly, like a brand that really stood for something very different than the ecosystem looked like 10 years ago, which was we sell sexy and Victoria's Secret and the Angels and Calvin Klein. And there was a distinct narrative that really had been the same since the 90s. Not much had changed. It had been around for decades. That was the only option. And it's like, who are we even selling to here? And so it was a funny story. We went to our first photo shoot in San Francisco with our photographer, and he said, who do you want to look like? Because if you're a small company and you're starting, you're usually like trying to imitate someone, or you're like, oh, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I want to be like this brand, right? That's how you describe what you're going for. And we're like, there isn't anyone. Like, there's nobody that's shooting the product and showcasing women in bras, any bra company that we see, that is what we want to do. And it's hard to do that. So from a creative bent, it was really about, how do we make it more empowering for women? How do we choose more inclusive body shapes? Even finding models outside of a 34B was really hard back then, because the model ecosystem was completely different. It wasn't inclusive. So you had to really seek out women who were outside typical model looks or measurements. And all of that was something we did from the very early days.
So if you had to choose 3 words to describe the vibe of your brand, the vibe and energy, what would they be?
The first is really confidence. Like, we are a brand that wants women to feel confident, and we want our models to be confident, and we want to like always have that. The second is really, I would say, an ease about them. And by that, I mean they're comfortable in their own skin. They feel comfortable in what they're wearing. They appear at ease. Like, we want to be that kind of brand. And the last is smart. Like, at the end of the day, like, our customers are smart, women are smart, and our products are smart, and they solve real problems. And so it's very different than like probably the 3 words like maybe someone would use to describe Victoria's Secret.
Mm-hmm. Where is your perspective when it comes to sexiness? And what is that line between a woman really owning her sexuality and her sexual power as a place of empowerment versus it being disempowerment?
Well, so it's interesting because I think sexy can be all the 3 things that I also said. Like, sexy can be confident. Sexy can have an ease or a comfort to it. It doesn't need to feel like forced, which I think oftentimes it does, depending on what we're talking about. And sexy can be smart too. It's like a woman owning her own power, her sexuality, and how she feels that day. But certainly, like, lingerie doesn't always have to be lensed through sexy as a word. So I think sexy is great. And I believe our models are sexy. Like, I look at our imagery and I think they look beautiful and sexy, but it's like through the lens of themselves, not trying to be sexy for somebody else. It's like they are themselves sexy versus trying to prove it out.
Yeah. So it's
a good question.
Higher energy is sexy, like just who I am. And
like she could totally.
Yeah. So you openly challenged Victoria's Secret in 2018 and wrote an open letter, and you started this new campaign called To Each Her Own. Can you tell us what was that letter all about and the stance behind it?
Yeah. So in 2018, I woke up one morning and I had a lot of text messages like, did you see this article? And I'm like, what is happening? Because we're West Coast, so there's always a little bit of the lag time. And there was this article that had come out in Vogue, and the title of it was "We're Nobody's Third Love, We're Women's First Love." And I'm like, what is this? And so I start reading this article, and it's a Q&A with the chief marketing officer of Victoria's Secret at the time and a Vogue editor. And I actually met this Vogue editor a couple months after this and ended up chatting with her. And what was interesting is she was doing an interview with Ed Rasek. And really, the interview wasn't meant to be a Q&A. It was an interview about the fashion show, which they were continuing to do. And she was talking to him about it. But as she went through this interview, the things that he was saying was so impactful and crazy that she actually just published it as a Q&A. She didn't even write an article. She just published this whole thing verbatim. Anyway, so this article had a lot of things in it that were very, I believe, old school opinions of what women want and what women want out of an intimates brand, and lots of statements that were made that were just, I believe, just completely inaccurate. And
Do you remember what some of those were, or like the
just like things
specifics?
like, we tried plus size in the early 2000s and it doesn't work. So that's why we don't have anyone of any different size in our fashion show. And also the idea of, this is what women want. Everyone wants entertainment. So this is like the best. This is like the best way for somebody to spend their evening, is to watch the entertainment of the fashion show. And it was just like all these things that were just very much like, you're telling us like how women want to spend their time, what they want to see in a fashion show. This thing hasn't changed in 30 years, right? It is stick skinny women with huge feathers on them. There's zero diversity in body shape, body size, age, any kind of diversity practically. And it's same old. And it's really just treating women in the same way you always have. And as if this is what we're all asking for. Like every woman in America, this is what we're dying to see, and like how we want to spend our time. And also, this is the kind of brand that like we want to buy. Like this is the brand that epitomizes how we want to view ourselves or what we want to see. And we're going to keep spending money at a brand like this. That is so out of touch with women, and also all the things women do. And again, it's, yeah, women can be sexy, but there are 45 other things too. And so not really addressing like that idea of the whole woman. And like, also it's 2018, like things have changed. There was a lot in there and you could read it. It's a long read. It's 20 minutes, but it's interesting. And then there were some things that were mentioned about our company, or just talking a little bit about ThirdLove, which obviously was under their skin. And so it felt like we had never really said anything about Victoria's Secret before, but it just felt like an opportune moment to say, hey, there's another view and we have it. And so we took out a one-page ad in the New York Times and wrote an open letter. And it was just like, from me to Victoria's Secret, dear Victoria's Secret, like, you said this, and we believe the complete opposite. Like, we believe women are many things. Like, and we talked about like different, who our customers are and our belief in women and what women want, and how it was very different. And the idea of to each her own is, we're all individuals. We all have like different things we're looking for in our life, in our bras, in our undergarments, and certainly in our brand. And it was basically saying we're different. So it was definitely a moment for us as a brand that was really like our coming out moment of, here we are, and this is like what we believe and how we're different from Victoria's Secret.
And what was the response to that?
Lots of press. It created more of a press cycle and kind of media than I would have even imagined. I do think with those kind of things, like, you don't really know how they're going to land and you don't know the conversation. But I think all the things that were happening with Me Too, it was like a unique moment in time. And it definitely created conversation. I had so many dads, which was fascinating to me, or come and DM me on Instagram personally on my personal account being like, I saw this with my daughter. We looked at this and we talked about it and like how important it is. It was fascinating the amount of men that reached out. That was like, whoa, that's so cool. Because some men were like, yeah, you're totally right. I've never thought about it. It's just been always, this is the way it is. It's like, oh, it's like, there could be something else. Like, we can do better, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you feel like that anything has significantly changed in terms of how women's sexuality is perceived today, in terms of a woman expressing sexiness professionally, personally? I think there's so much that commentary now on social media. It's like the first thing that a woman gets condemned for. If you see a woman making money, people are all trolls online being like, she must have an OnlyFans. And so I always find it like the number one weapon men seem to use against women is, it's, you're a bitch, you're a slut, like all these kind of connotations of just being a bitch is, I just have opinions and I'm strong. And then being like, oh, you are this kind of woman because you're wearing a bra online or you're wearing lingerie. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
It is I agree with you. I think we've come a long way in the past 8 years in more comfortably owning areas, but I think we're all on a journey together. I don't think this is like we've completed the test, like time to move on to the next thing. But certainly I do think even the evolution of Victoria's Secret itself as a brand, like where it is today versus where it was then, is it's different. It's much more empowering to the woman than it was in 2018. So I think we have come a long way, and a lot of brands own sexy in a different way and own it more through the lens of women, which I think is really important. I think there's better ownership today of sexy, but yeah, absolutely. It's always been weaponized. It probably always will be. I don't know, but it's better than it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it so ironic how, especially if you're a pioneer, you're building something different, you're taking a different stance, there's always some sort of backlash against a woman stepping into her power.
Yeah, we even saw that with female founders and around that time and shortly thereafter. There was a lot of kind of takedown pieces, if we can all remember those moments. And it was frequent and it was scary. If you think about the ratio of like even female founded companies to the amount of stories, I'm like, really? This is how we're spending our time? So yeah, I think there's a lot of spotlight on successful women because there honestly aren't as many in the Fortune 500 list. Women are held to a higher standard. And that's in essence what you're saying. And that is 1,000, 10,000% true.
Have you had any of those moments where you felt like you were categorized unfairly, or just there was like pieces around you that you're like, that's not who I really am?
I was lucky enough that not so much, but it did just feel like every little thing was potential for that. And that's also a very hard way to lead, to feel just like everything you say and do and who's watching and can I even be myself and all these things. It was a moment in time that was like a couple years probably. And it's not really that anymore. I think, again, we're in a different moment in time today, for better or for worse, but it definitely impacted me and it's stressful. I like to say what I think, and I don't want to have to hold back, and feeling you can't express your opinions, whatever those are, is not great.
What is your leadership style, or how would you describe like the type of leader you are?
I think I am very calm. So I think I am not one who gets super riled up. Like I like to take it all in, hear what people think, but then I'm also just very decisive, and I think I'm a very clear communicator. So I'll take it all in. I'm going to be really calm, but then it's make the decision, get people aligned to that and execute. And I think moving quickly. If you can't move quickly and you're not on the bus, then you should get off the bus. Like this isn't not, you can't have full consensus as a leader. So meaning not everyone's always going to agree with everything you do. So you just need to like explain why you're doing it and then do it and go forth. And people know a lot about the company and our journey. And I talk about that in our all hands and what's happening, because we're all on the journey together.
And do you feel like you are more of a intuitive decision maker or a data-driven logic decision maker?
Both. A good leader is always both. The data is really important because I think we all think we're right about a lot of stuff, especially as it relates to even like creative. And I think you have to have a POV and you need to listen to your intuition. But starting with the data is a really good place to start. Then there's decisions that are in your gut or you deeply feel, and you should always listen to those. So you absolutely have to blend, and you have to know when you're using what when for which decisions, because I find I'm toggling, and I think that is the natural way to do it. Especially also like in a creative company with product, there's always an art and a science. That's every single day. At a consumer company, there's a bit of both, and they're both super important. And to me, neither should like outweigh the other, but you use them both at different moments.
And do you have any thoughts on your feminine and your masculine, and like how you interweave that? Like which parts of you do you bring forth that are more feminine? Which parts do you bring forth that are more masculine?
Yeah, because I did a lot of sports growing up competitively, and it was such an innate part of me. and my upbringing and who I am. And even today, like I love any kind of athletic challenge because I'm a firm believer if you set your mind to something and you work hard and you put in the work, you see the output. And anything in the arena of like sports or strength is like a very good example of that. I don't care who you are. If you want to run a marathon, you can run a marathon, right? Like you can do it and you can probably improve your time over a certain amount of time. And work is the same way. It's dedication to whatever you're doing to get it done and to put in the hours and to commit. And a startup is very similar. And I think there's in the competitiveness of that too, which it's not just dedication, it's like I am a competitive person, like I want to win. That piece is really, to me, is a more masculine trait, even though a lot of women are competitive. And so I certainly feel like I bring that to the company. I want to win and I want to be successful. But I think from the feminine side too, I have a company of a lot of women employees, we have women customers. And so I do think having the empathy that a woman has or the ability to like see someone's whole self, it tends to, for me, is at least a little more of a feminine trait that's really important. Like we all are complex people, we all have a lot going on. And that's really important to recognize in both like storytelling, your customers, your employees. And I think that's what makes me more relatable is that I can bring that with me too.
And what do you think it will take to get more women into positions of leadership?
That is a great question. I don't know that I like have a great answer because I would have thought, again, I think we're making small strides, but if you really look at the data, it's not really that much. So I don't know. I think feminists in the 70s and 80s had a point of view. They thought they were doing something that was moving the needle. I think of like my generation, same thing. And now here we are today, like with this upcoming generation. And I don't know how it'll play out. Like, I'm not convinced structurally. Look, there's paternity leave, right? Again, not mainstream, but in orbits we're in, right? There's things that are happening that I think make it easier for women to stay in the workforce, but we haven't solved all the issues. And I don't know. I don't know, but I think it's really important we keep talking about it and trying because we need more women leaders.
And do you think that most women should be entrepreneurs and do their own thing, or it's more like becoming leaders from within?
Both. So it's interesting. The idea of entrepreneurship can be anything, right? You can be a small business owner and have one store, one type of business, and that can be your whole business can be you, right? For example, if you have a small business and the small businesses are the backbone of the US economy. And I think it's a great way that you can own your own lifestyle. You're right. You're in charge of yourself and all the things. Now it's stressful. It's not for everyone, but I think it's just really important. Like women are bring such like unique dynamics to leadership and just rooms in general. And so we need more women in every aspect of like the working world. So beyond entrepreneurship everywhere, I think that's really crucial. So I would say both are important, but certainly entrepreneurship can offer a unique opportunity for women to create their own schedules and own their own companies. And then for a lot of women, that will be hiring teams and building something bigger.
Yeah, I feel like one of the big things that I've thought a lot about is there's this really interesting inflection point right now where a lot of women are rejecting dating. They are rejecting traditional idea of marriage because we can make our own money, we have our own friends, we have our own lifestyle, and the pool of available men is just not cutting it. There's this really funny thing that I saw online, which was like the moment we stop needing men for resources and stop judging on looks or strength and just character came into the equation, the percentage of available men like dropped significantly because now women are expecting you've gone to therapy, you have high self-awareness, high emotional intelligence, that you've done just as much work as women. And then you pair that with fertility service, just the ability to freeze your eggs. I did that a few years ago, and then the ability to freeze embryos and really choose life on your own terms, because a woman really starts to come into her own like in her
Totally.
30s. And it's like always your ambition gets cut off a lot of times
Totally.
because you just can't build because you're focused on building a family.
Yeah, I think that will be a super interesting time over the next couple of years, because really like that didn't exist 10 years ago. That wasn't widespread. And today it is. So that is like very new. And that's one element of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good stuff, because nobody should ever feel pressured about making terrible choices or not up to par choices just for that. So it's an amazing, it should really change things. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, we'll see. So I want to go back to just some bad bitch moments in your career, and like moments where you really stood by your values, just showed people what your business, your empire was all about, moments where people doubted you, but you were like, I'm standing by my convictions. Share with us some of those moments that you're really proud of.
I think one of the first at ThirdLove was around half cups. It was this idea that we had found something that was super innovative that would really change everyone's lives. And when we went to our manufacturing partner, they were like, the one we wanted to work with, they're like, no, it's too expensive. People have tried it before. It'll never work. The laundry list was long. And I remember we came back, my co-founders and I were like, should we walk from that? And it was like, no, like this is, again, this is the idea of there is no data to really go off of. So you're going off of some data, mostly qualitative, and then a deep instinct of this is a thing that's really important. And so we walked from that manufacturer and found another one, which took another X number of months. And that one agreed to do it begrudgingly. And here we are 13 years later, and a quarter of our sales, 25% of our sales are in half cups. So if you talk about something that ThirdLove is known for, that it was very in the early days, that was like a good example. Just because somebody's an expert, like these bra manufacturers were truly experts in their field, doesn't mean they know better than you do. So I think that is like a big learning, is that once in a while you just really have to be like, no, I have such deep belief in this, like I'm willing to fight for it.
That's like really going with your gut instinct, right? It's like I know this is true, even though there isn't
Yeah.
data to back it up.
Yeah.
You also mentioned going back to the 2018 moment where body positivity still hadn't like really started. You told me about where you like put that big billboard poster right outside the VS office. Can you just take us back to that moment?
Yeah. So as part of this campaign we were launching, which was around the same time as the open letter, we launched a campaign and it was called To Each Your Own. And the idea was, and it came through in the imagery. So at the time, again, there was just real sort of consistency in images. And we did this really powerful shoot with some amazing women. And so we shot a woman, an older woman. We shot a woman who was breastfeeding. We shot a woman with stretch marks. So a lot of real women, just like the women in our orbits. And that was really the campaign, was just these very beautiful women in really like powerful, confident poses with whatever they were doing. And the tagline was To Each Her Own. And it was really like, yeah, this ownership of like who you are, where you are, in whatever stage of life, like you're beautiful and you are confident and all those things I talked about. And we plastered different, we went to New York to do our out of home campaign for that. And we plastered it all throughout the subways, a couple of the subway stations. And there was a billboard outside of Victoria's Secret office, which we happened to put up a billboard there. And yeah, I think it was really definitely another way to say we're here, we're different, and like we're not going away. And again, here's our belief in what we should all get used to seeing. And look, like today, the reason why brands look like how they do today is in part because of that, right? There are these like real disruptor brands like ThirdLove who come in with a completely different POV and do something different, and it opens the floodgates, right? It opens the floodgates for others to do that too. So certainly in intimates, we were definitely like the first to do that.
So it seems like the through line through all of this is continuing to, number one, have strong convictions and a strong point of view, standing by that, even when there isn't explicit data backing it up. And that's where you go into your gut and your intuition. And then even with people pushing back on it, even with industry giants or legacy companies not having that perspective, like choosing to continue standing behind what you believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's in having the conviction and the energy to do it when sometimes it feels like it's going to take so long or no one's going to see. It's hard. Like you're still small in comparison when you're like the David and Goliath. Like when you're the smaller one, it feels like the battle is big and how are you ever going to achieve it? And so having the perseverance, the grit, it's like little by little. Nothing's changing overnight, but it does change over time.
And what would you say is your relationship to your own feminine power?
I think it's just really important to understand who you are and to leverage it in the way
If you
that
enjoyed
feels
this
most
episode,
authentic
take a
to you.
screenshot,
I remember in
tag
the
me
early
at
days
Lisa
of
Carmen
ThirdLove
Wang,
when I
and
was
make
doing
sure you
media
check
training
out
to go on air on all the
thebadbitchempire.com
business
for events,
stations when we
courses,
launched and
crypto,
Bloomberg and all
other
the things
cool shit.
and
Thanks for tuning
people
in
were
to
like, don't
the
use your
Bad
hands and don't
Bitch
do this
Empire.
and that and all the things. And I felt like I became so robotic and just not who I was. Or I think back to during COVID and after, and when we had to do layoffs at ThirdLove, like the idea of crying on an all hands, like I did. Like I think it's just, I go back to there's these moments where you just need to be who you are and be authentic to the moment and not try to fit in the box of what someone's trying to tell you to be or how you should be. It's like you are who you are. So like leveraging that and using that as your guiding force. Now that doesn't mean you can't improve. Like certainly there's always ways to improve public speaking and improve ourselves, to your point, the work we all do. I think that's hugely important too in getting feedback and recognizing that. And we're all a work in progress. But that being said, you don't need to fit someone else's idea of what this has looked like in the past. And so I think that's where your own femininity comes in. It's who are you? What do you bring to the table? How's it unique? And amplify it. That's what makes you unique. So do that thing. It's like what you've done, right? It's like, how are you? Like, you're so unique. Like, you don't fit into a box. That's great. That's what makes you relevant and cool and interesting. It's not by being like somebody else.
Yeah, one of the things I picked up on was you started getting super robotic and they were like, don't use your hands. And I've had those moments where even with this brand, like people would hurl it back at me and be like, oh, having a brand called Bad Bitch Empire is so inappropriate for the workplace and professionalism. And I'm like, I obviously didn't create this brand to have it be vanilla. Like it has a point of view and it's for women who are also looking to break out of the box and like traditional labels. But there was a time when those comments initially posting in these very conservative circles that it reached on LinkedIn, where I started thinking like, am I too much? Is this like too provocative? And it made me smaller. It made me really doubt myself for a period and really think like maybe I should just drop it and do something more palatable and less triggering to people. And it was like, it took me a while to get back on, but it was like I had to be around other women who are like, wait, no, that's awesome. I love Bad Bitch. I love how you show up. It's inspiring. But yeah, it's like getting back to what is being your most authentic and powerful version of yourself, because that can trigger people.
100%. Yeah. And it's, look, people will be triggered about all kinds of stuff. And there's always somebody complaining about something. That's the other thing too, right? So you're never going to make everyone happy. And so one of the things that I've always said is we can look at customer comments all day long and people will have feedback on things and we should read them. And again, it's data in, it's then there's the decisions you make. But to do something that is changing the world or moving the needle, like not everyone's going to like it. And even the To Each Her Own campaign, the one I just talked about, like the amount of negative feedback we got was high because people were like, I can't believe you're showing a woman breastfeeding, like on a subway station. Like, it's revolting. I can't believe you're showing these kind of stretch marks. Nobody wants to see that. So there's a lot of narrative, as much as there was a lot of positive, wow, this is cool and impactful and like all the things. There was a lot of negativity around it. And that's where you make the decision about like why you're doing something, right? And it's hard, but it's hard to hear those things, but that's when you know you're doing something powerful because you're creating conversation and not everyone's agreeing.
What helped you get back into your power in those moments, or even today, in those moments where maybe some of those negative voices do come in?
I think it's a human nature that we fixate on the negative comments as if they're like everybody. And I even do this too, because think about it, people don't generally reach out to tell you how good of a job you're doing. They're not like, hey, sometimes people do. That was awesome. Love that interview. You're crushing it. Love what you're doing for the world. Like, people are just like, they reach out when they're like snarky or they don't like it or they want to complain or something went wrong or all the things, right? So we have to, as leaders, be able to recognize that. So we're thinking about it the right way. And then I always go back to, I just try to remember, and I hope you do get positive feedback a lot. You have people who are like, I love what you do. You have to carry those with you, those moments, or the times when people are like, I love your bras and they changed my life, or I had breast cancer and I bought this and this was the only bra that I could wear post surgery and it made me finally feel like myself again. Those are really important moments and really important things that we've been able to accomplish as a brand that have highly impacted a woman's life in a positive way. And those are the moments that carry you forward. But you can't get too fixated on the negativity. It's there, but it's just how much do you allow it into your orbit? Like, you should know it's there and then move on. Yeah.
You have built this into an empire and clearly have that grit, that perseverance, that tenacity, and continue to pave the way forward for body positivity, inclusivity for women. What would you say is your ultimate goal for ThirdLove? You're looking back at it one day, you're like, the legacy that you've left.
Yeah. I really want to be a brand that's there for women like throughout their entire life cycle. And so from that point, we're still just getting started if I think about who we're servicing. And because really a bra brand can be that brand that's there for a tweener teen when she gets her first bra. That's a really special experience for her and not intimidating or embarrassing and all the things. I know it was for me. Like, I can remember my first bra shopping trip. It was not good. And lots of women that I talk to are like, oh my God, let me tell you. And they have their own story. And so it's like, we should be able to do better, especially as women who have children, who daughters at some point, who want to create different experiences. So I think about that life cycle and all the things that happen throughout someone's life, gaining and losing weight, maybe pregnancy, maybe not, but all the things, hormones. Your bra size changes on average 6 times over the course of your life or more. So there's all of these moments, and they're generally related to things going on in your life. And so I want to be a brand that's there for all of that and in different ways. And a lot of it also relates back to like education and how somebody feels, right? So when your bra size changes, like, how do you feel when you get a new size? And, or if you go into a ThirdLove store, like, what's that experience and how do we make it the most awesome it can be? And how are we there for somebody? And with our new bras that are targeted more at the perimenopause, menopause woman, like how are we there for you then too? And so all the moments, all the places we can be part of her journey, like, that's the kind of brand I want to be, is like a trusted best friend who's there for you and is going to deliver and be real, tell you the truth, to give you what you need.
And that sounds like it's an extension of you. Like, still to this day, even your brand is an extension of your true authentic self, which I always find really interesting. It's like, no matter what the founder builds, if it's in service of people, like, your essence, your energy lives through your product, your service, your community. And yeah, so I've always thought about like how important it is to continue maintaining that in your own being, like in your own power, so that you can continue really growing that into your business and your legacy.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah.
Any last tips for women on building their brands, their empires, or their lives on their own terms?
I think the biggest thing is don't be small, like we've talked about. Own it and own it in its entirety. Women tend to sell themselves short. Own the power, own the narrative. Think about when you pitch yourself. I have a super short story, but it's impactful. I was recently at a female founders event, and somebody stood up to talk about their company, and she introed herself. And the woman next to her stood up and was like, hold up. That was not good. And I'm going to intro you because I just talked to you at the table for 5 minutes. And she stood up and introduced this other woman. And it reminded me at the beginning when you're talking about me, and it's embarrassing. And I'm like, oh my God, it feels like kind of braggy and it's not who I am and all this stuff. But see, like somebody else can sell it better than we can. So be that person for yourself. It's hard. Be the person who's, yeah, I did this shit. And this is who I am. This is who, be that person, because if you're not going to be, nobody is. So do that. And it is uncomfortable. It's like, we've all got to like push ourselves a little bit, but so own it, be it. And like, you've done awesome things. So tell the world, like the world should know. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. Be your own biggest hype woman. And I also think it's like important to do that because sometimes we don't do it because we're afraid to trigger other women, right? Like we don't want to sound braggy in front of other women because that will trigger women who are still playing small. So it's like this domino effect where we don't want them to think that about us, and so we make ourselves small, and then just like everyone keeps making themselves small, versus if we were all just, I'm freaking awesome and I'm a bad bitch and I've done all these amazing things, and tell me about all the amazing things you've done too.
Totally. And surround yourself by people who are like that, because there are a lot of women like that in the world. And this was a great example in this group of you, like I will get up there and tell you all the things. So yeah, it starts with us, but we can also in this exact same way, like you can help lift up somebody else too and help them be a bad bitch too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And last question for you. What does being a bad bitch mean to you?
So I think it means achieving something other people thought you couldn't do. And to me, that is what an entrepreneur does. And it's what fuels me still.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being a bad bitch, for building your empire that serves so many women and will continue to serve more women. And I'm grateful for your insights, your wisdom, and everything else that you're going to be bringing into this world. So I appreciate you and your time here with the Bad Bitch Empire.
Loved it.
If you enjoyed this episode, take a screenshot, tag me at Lisa Carmen Wang, and make sure you check out thebadbitchempire.com for events, courses, and other cool shit. Thanks for tuning in to The Bad Bitch Empire.